Everyone, and thank you for joining me on this St John's masterclass production of Stop Wasting Money on Marketing, brought to you live and direct from St John's Innovation Centre and various other locations around the UK. My name is Chris Ellis. I'm a Senior Innovation Advisor and Innovate UK Edge Scale-Up Director within the projects team here at St John's Innovation Centre. And through the engagements that I have with clients that I support, large and small, regionally and nationally, I get to spend time talking about marketing a lot. And that's fine, because in a previous life, I created brands, developed strategies, conceived campaigns, and I got measured on results. And sometimes I did good, and sometimes I did less good. So I know personally how difficult it is to deliver marketing effectiveness. But today I am the lucky host with the most amazing presenters, ready to spend the next 75 minutes with you, sharing their knowledge, insight, expertise, the highs and lows of their marketing experiences. So you may have seen the poster, you may have read the trailer, you've bought the ticket, kind of. So what can you expect from this masterclass? Number one, a narrative arc. You will see a strategic thread running through each of the talks for sure. Number two, clarity. I am hoping for all killer and no filler, no pressure. Brevity, we don't have long, and this could easily be a quarterly exercise. Integrity, this is a BS-free zone. Humility, this is also an ego-free zone. I know these people aren't that way at all. And levity, there are more important things in life than marketing effectiveness, so we'll try and keep a perspective on that. But think of it as an empirical research presentation. So in terms of the running order, as per your Eventbrite calendars that you collected in the foyer, first off, we're going to have Joe Glover, fresh from international acclaim on his marketing meetup tour. Joe will talk strategy and the commercial imperative of anchoring tactics to desired outcomes. Following Joe, we've got Faye Holland, currently directing the annual 21 to Watch show and running her award-winning co-finitive ensemble. Faye's going to talk about the bravery and creativity required to stand out, amongst other things. And then closing the show, we have Matt Scahill, who is live and direct from Ruler Analytics in the Liverpool Playhouse, and Matt will talk about the perils of throwing time and money at digital marketing without really thinking it through. There will be time for questions at the end of each of the talks, and there will be time for questions at the end, and we can go on until 12:30 if we need an encore. We're recording this, so note-taking is optional. You're all muted at the minute, but at question time, I will do my best to Fiona Bruce proceedings. And so on this lucky 13th day of October in the year 2021, when William Shatner will finally go boldly into space without splitting his 90-year-old infinitives, keep everything crossed about that. Let us lift off with the most loved man in the marketing universe. Joe Glover, please share your screen and give us the view from the bridge.
Thank you very much, mate. Thank you for having me, and thank you everyone for being here and watching in this morning as well. Hope you're all fab. Hopefully you can see my screen. I am going to do the confirmation thing. Chris, can you see my screen okay?
I can.
Wicked. I ask because the last presentation I did, I managed to present in presentation view for the entire time, and people could see the next slide coming out throughout the duration. So we're one step beyond where we were last time. I can see that there's 35 people in this session right now. It'd be wicked if that chat feature was alive throughout the duration of this session, as much as Matt, Faye and I are going to be doing our best to entertain, enlighten and make you feel happy. It would be wicked if it was a two-way conversation. Otherwise it feels a little bit like speaking into a black hole. So please do use that chat feature if you can, because it will make us happy too. So hey, my name is Joe. I am, that's my wife, my dog, and our daughter, our 8-month-old daughter. I am 29 and 6 years old, and I run something called the Marketing Meetup, which is a global community of some 26,000 positively lovely marketers across the world who are, most importantly, super engaged and super special. I want to start off this presentation with a bit of a story, and that story starts 8 years ago. I was a marketer with a problem. In fact, let's make that a little bit bigger. It was a big problem. I missed the joke there with the slide, so sorry. I was stuck in the mud. Whatever I was doing didn't seem to be working. I was working as hard as I could. I was racking my mind for the things that I could be doing different, better, to stand out. But whatever it was, it just wasn't working. This all came to a head one day when I was driving through the countryside in Ireland. In fact, it didn't look a little bit like that. It looked a little bit like this. It was really, really rainy. I felt really sad, and my boss was sat next to me in the car. He wasn't that angry person, but you know, that's the stereotypical boss, right? And I remember turning to my boss and saying, I don't know how we're going to get to where we want to. What we're doing doesn't seem to be landing, and you and I, we have a communication problem. It was on that day that I reached my marketing rock bottom. But for you, your marketing rock bottom might look like no sales, no cut through. You're unsure what your marketing should be doing. Your spend is ineffective. People don't believe in marketing. You're unsure what to do next. Or in my case, because I get far too involved in all this stuff, genuine sadness. So over these next sort of 18 minutes or so, I want to save you some time. So I'm going to do that with the 3 things I wish I knew about marketing 8 years ago. So let's get going with number 1. So my first job that I took was as an IT consultant, and I'm unashamed to say at this stage that I purely took it for the money, which was a great lesson in doing what you love, because I ended up leaving that job after 6 months. I was working 14-hour days and working in Slough, and because you say the word Slough, then you've got to bring up memories of the office, right? It's just what you do. I didn't like it, and so I left. At that time, I was still blogging about social media though, so I thought, you know what? I'll go into marketing. I walked in to the marketing industry and thought I knew it all. I thought I knew what marketing was. And so I got a job in marketing, and someone said, come on in, do your marketing thing. And I tried to do my marketing thing, but at the end of the day, it wasn't effective because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have a working definition of what marketing was. Unfortunately, that was just the road to nowhere. So the first thing that I want to do today is sort of define what I think marketing is. And for me, marketing is meeting the needs of the customer. It's as simple as that. But if we look one level below that, then marketing is meeting, and these are the 2 crucial elements, the needs and the challenges of the customer. But really, if you take that one level further, you're solving a pain or a challenge for a human being. It was in that moment that my mind sort of exploded just a little bit, because marketing moved away from a thing that I did into an attitude. And that attitude was, what can I do to improve the customer's life? Marketing became a lens for looking at our organization through the eyes of the customer. It also gave me permission to sort of think of every touch point that the customer comes into contact with our companies with as a marketing thing, whether that's our communications, whether it's our customer service, whether it's our welcome emails, whatever it may be, how we answer the phone. Every one of these things became a marketing touch point. This led me to a place which I think is a useful way to think about marketing, and will hopefully move you away from a place of already being confused about what marketing should be doing. which is marketing is in effect figuring out what a human being wants, matching it to your solution, and then communicating that solution. It's really as simple as that. In the end, you get a problem solved, you get a happy customer, and, of course, because there is a commercial imperative here, there is sales too. Fundamentally, this moves the marketing conversation away from something that is us orientated into something that is you orientated, away from the company into the customer. This has a profound impact on everything you do, but some of the most simple things is that you'll see on every company announcement ever, they always start with the words, "We have an exciting new announcement," which is a load of rubbish. The way that you need to be changing it is to say something like, "Here is something that will benefit you." And I think that's something that we need to really, really hold tight, because particularly in our fair city of Cambridge, then we have a very big thing that exists in our city, which is a product orientation. We create something, then take it to market and try and figure out how to make money off this product that we've created. If you flip the narrative and actually look for something the market wants and understand their needs, pains, challenges, and what you want to help solve them and improve their life, then it makes the marketing situation a whole lot easier, because all of a sudden you're solving a problem for a human being rather than trying to solve your problem, which is that you're trying to sell your product to them. So, definitions out the way, let's move on to number 2, which is that marketing can actually be very, very linear. My personal favorite professor of marketing is Mark Ritson. I think he speaks a lot of sense. And for those of you who aren't familiar, he's worth seeking out. He writes a weekly column for Marketing Week. And in that column, he will present a bunch of very, very sensible marketing stuff. I'd really recommend seeking him out. Mr. Ritson sums marketing up into 3 stages: diagnosis, strategy, and tactics. 3 simple stages. At the diagnosis stage, we're understanding what the market is and what they want. We're taking an agnostic view onto the whole market and saying, if we didn't exist here, what would people be doing? What do they want? What do they need? How are they solving the problem that we are trying to solve? Very, very crucially at this point, it's nothing about you. It's just about the market and how it exists. At the strategy stage, we're defining everything from our consistent message that we'd like to get across, but also very crucially, not what we'd like to do too. So we are not going to try and reach these people. We are not going to say these things. So strategy is as much about saying what you're not going to do as much about what you are. And then tactics. Tactics is the bit that everyone thinks marketing is about, but it includes everything from your product, place, promotion, and price. But really that promotion element is the bit that everyone gravitates to when they think about marketing. The tactics, the marketing tactics, the channels that gets the word out, the TikToks, the Twitters, the Facebooks, the email marketing, the out of office, whatever it may be, that all fits within the communications part of a tactical implementation of a marketing strategy. And you can see here that there's a bunch of things that fit within diagnosis, strategy, and tactics. Market orientation is all about understanding the market. Research is actually going out and trying to find out about them. Segmentation is about taking that research and understanding what segments exist within that totality of the market. Targeting is making the decision to target specific people. Positioning is what you're going to say to them. Objectives is what you're aiming for. Product, price, communications, and distribution. It's all about getting the word out and making sure that your product matches the expectation of the market and that your strategy matches that. Fundamentally, as marketers, we have to sort of work past this challenge on the regular of being the colouring in department, the Crayola department. But you can see that when you start working through this list, you actually have a series of observations and messages and insights into the market that become incredibly useful for the company. So rather than just focusing on like how to produce a leaflet or something like that, all of a sudden the marketing department becomes super useful and very, very, very important into how we make money. And this is relevant because at number 3, and I know I've been going on about it, but I really want to drive home this point, is the thing about tactics. So my gateway drug into marketing was social media. And my key message from today really is that marketing is not just social media. It's like saying that the entirety of finance is the profit and loss statement. It's just such a small segment of what we do. Unfortunately, this is a misconception that we've allowed to breed as marketers, and we do our best to get the word out about tactics too, and sort of speak about them all the time, because it gets clicks on blogs and it engages conversation. You see blog posts like this all the time, the 23 benefits of social media for business. But the most damaging sentence that any marketer could write is social media for business is no longer optional. Of course it's optional. Every tactic, every channel is optional. It's only not optional. The only thing that you need to be doing is doing the right thing for your customer. So don't think of any tactic as any channel as not optional. They all are. We allow this misconception to breathe because we also listen to the advice of our nieces and nephews who tell us we need to be on TikTok. You may need to be on TikTok if your customers are there, but if they're not, then don't worry about it. It's okay. You can say no. So you can see here that marketing really is broken down into a bunch of things: diagnosis, strategy, and tactics. But if we are going to focus on tactics, and this is part of what Faye's going to be speaking about, so I really am taking a high level view on this, then my recommendation would be to use tactics correctly, because it's very easy to get busy being busy, just for the sake of it, to be doing stuff but not really sure why. And effectively, this is where you end up, in a place where your various communication channels are ended up all over the place. Social media, PPC, copywriting, other stuff, whatever it is, they just don't have any congruence to them. They don't make sense. So what's the solution? Well, the first thing you need to do is find purpose for your action. And the solution for that, well, in my view, the easiest tool that I've found for this is the marketing lifecycle. The marketing lifecycle breaks marketing tactics and specifically communication down into 5 stages. Awareness is all about making people aware that you exist in the first place. Consideration is moving people to a place where they are aware that you exist, but now they actually want to buy from you. Purchase is making that purchase as easy as possible. And yes, that is a marketing responsibility as much as it is a sales responsibility, as much as it is an organizational responsibility. But very, very crucially, as part of all this, then you shouldn't forget about retention and advocacy. Most people will think of marketing and sales activity as stopping at the purchase stage. But it's far, far more effective to keep the customers that you have rather than trying to find new ones all the time. So never forget to try and retain your customers and turn them into your biggest fans. Because at the advocacy stage, word of mouth is by far the most effective marketing channel you'll have in the world ever. And so a marketing lifecycle might look a little bit like this. You plot out your channels and you go through and say, we are going to do PR for the purpose of awareness. The reason why that is relevant is because then you will go out and you will change your metrics on how you choose to engage with the PR channel and how you will run that campaign in a certain way. So for example, PR and an awareness stage will be just about maximizing the reach, reaching as many of your target market as possible. Whereas if you were doing PR at the consideration stage, you might be looking for something far more targeted. It's probably the difference between targeting something like at the awareness stage in the Times versus at the consideration stage in Marketing Week, for example. One is much more specific and one is very much more like broad. The thing you can do with the marketing lifecycle then is also assign metrics to it. So for example, at the awareness stage, then you will have metrics on stuff like reach and email signups, for example, very high level. It's all about bringing an audience in. At the consideration stage, it might be like downloads of an ebook or download of a coupon, for example, if you're in e-commerce. At the purchase, it's all about sales, but you could also do stuff about how easy the sales process is, or percentage of people converted from a basket all the way through to actually purchasing. And then at the retention advocacy stages, make sure you're also measuring everything. So churn of customers and new customers from word of mouth. Fundamentally, this moves you from a place of doing tactical communications from just doing to doing with purpose, and from doing with purpose to doing with purpose, and you're measuring success. All in all, I wish I'd known that 8 years ago, because like that would have been really, really useful. So that's been my whistle stop tour of 3 things that I wish I'd known about marketing 8 years ago. Fundamentally, for me on my journey, I've gone from a place of being stuck in the mud, from being quite a mediocre marketer, to a place where I sit in the middle of a really lovely community and doing all right from it. So to very, very quickly wrap up, definitions, marketing, it's all about meeting the needs of the customer. It can be quite linear. There are a bunch of things that you can do in sequence that produce really great marketing results. Please don't jump to the tactics, because that's the third thing. It's not just tactics, but if you're going to do your tactical communications, please use the life cycle or something like it. It's not the be all end all answer, but it's a good starting place for anyone who's busy being busy. There's a bunch of resources here. I'll share the deck with Chris that you may want to look into. These are things that have really inspired me over the course of time. And I think that's it. So, oh yeah, that's me, Joe Glover, the Marketing Meetup, and hit me up on LinkedIn if you would like. Thank you very much.
Joe, thank you. Marvelous as ever, engaging and concise and thought-provoking. Thank you so much for working through that. And yeah, we'll I'm sure people were taking notes, but it's great that we're recording this so they can reflect back on that. So that's lovely. I am. Are we seeing questions? Lots of praise. No questions. I do have a question, but I might keep it until the end, because if that's the only one, I won't get in the way of Faye. So I'll keep my question back on that. And Faye, if you want to, if there are no questions for Joe right now, Faye, if you'd like to step up to the mic, share your screen. As comfortable as you are doing this, I know you have the floor. Please take it away and talk to us about the bravery and the creativity and the sometimes the ballsiness of saying no.
I love it. Love it. Thanks, Chris. Thank you. Going back to your intro right at the top, I'm slightly nervous because I do have a tendency to go squirrel. So I'll start on one track and end up somewhere else. But just, hey, we'll go with it and see what happens. So morning, everyone. I'm Faye Holland. I started Cofinitive, which is a comms and PR company, 6 years ago, based here in Cambridge. But prior to that, I spent over 20 years, I know I don't look old enough, in marketing as a director and practitioner. So very much similar to probably the majority of you. I was a company employee. First of all, at a startup, an internet service provider, when the internet first began. And then I moved over to IBM, working in a series of roles there, and then to a global media company. So yes, I've spent most of my time on probably your side of the fence, working across a huge amount of brands and industries, which means I've probably been through a lot of pain. I've been through a lot of the pain that Joe's just talked about. And the only difference now is sitting on the other side of the fence is that myself, the team here, we work with lots of other clients, not just the one company we work for. So Joe's talked about strategy. Anyone who knows us at Cofinitive will know that we're very much a strategy-led organisation. And so I'm never going to apologise for labouring the point about strategy is just the bedrock of everything that you need to do. We need to know what story we're telling to which audience, at what time, and what action we want them to take as a result of that outreach. Because basically no one is going to buy anything off you if they don't know who you are. So, you know, it's not, as Joe says, it's not just about social media, it's about a whole mix of different tactics that balance the brand awareness and credibility with your marketing campaigns. And so for us, it's about integrated marketing. You hear about all of these different things, and I'm going to give you some real tangible examples of how to actually do that and get more bangs for your buck. This is about don't waste money on marketing. So hopefully I'll give you a few pointers on that. The other thing I wanted to add before we get onto the tactics is about your messaging strategy. So we describe content as like a cake. You basically have different layers of content that if you do it well, you can then pick and mix those to target the right audience at the right time. So you have your core message, whether that's your elevator or your products or whatever it is according to your business. You have your themes, and then you have your campaign messages. And if you stick to that layer cake approach and you're constantly reiterating those points, your target audience will know what you're trying to tell them at the given time. It's old school target marketing, but it has to be based on the strategy. So the other thing I wanted to just say, models, marketing models. So I'm one of these people, I think I tried to do a marketing qualification right at the start of my career, and I just kept getting bored. It just was not for me. I'm definitely a roll your sleeves up and go and find out what the answer is. And if you're ever stuck, don't just lose yourself looking at models. Go and talk to your customers, because do you know what? They'll tell you what their journey was. You know, you don't need a formula to do that. You need to remember we're human beings and just go have a conversation with them. So other things that I'm thinking about here, as well as your written content, and again, not harking back to what Joe was saying, we are known as the crayon department, but it's actually much more than that now. Your visual content has to be as concise, succinct, and cohesive as your written content would be. We're consistency freaks here. We want people to look at something like Cadbury's chocolate, you immediately recognize them because of the purple. It's really important. You can make your life so much easier with your brand and your messaging and your marketing if you actually take a really good look at those types of things. And the other thing on visual content that I wanted to propose to you was, if your brand and your company is all about motivating the younger generation, for goodness sake, use pictures of young people in your campaigns and on your websites and in your offices. Just, do things like that actually further demonstrates what your brand ethos is. One other thing, and then I will get onto tactics, so these are quite general comments to start off with, is that when you're starting out, really think about your name and your brand identity. And I know that some of the people that Chris works with in the program, some of you are starting out or you're developing a product. Just think really carefully about those product names. We've had an instance recently where a company who will remain nameless, only because if I say it, it makes me giggle, whose literal description of their product, it sounds like a rather intrusive medical device, but they can't see it because they're so obsessed with this name. So just have a think about your name. Does it translate? What colours are you using? Do they have a different meaning in different countries and things like that? And Joe said then about social media, about it's, is it optional? Is it an imperative? Actually, the other thing that you need to make sure you do, irrespective of whether you're going to use them, is go and secure every single asset. If you've come up with a name, get every single URL, get every single social media channel in the different markets that you're working in. Because if you do decide to use them, you'll be a little bit frustrated if someone else has taken them. So just, they're just some initial kind of thoughts and observations leading on from the strategy conversation. So what I would like to do is I'd like to find out about the 33 of you that I don't know on the phone. So Nick, could you just put up the first Menti link for me? I'd like to find out from you, just to kind of then tailor what else I'm going to say, how good you are or how good you think you are at marketing at the moment. So it's just a little bit of a light-hearted look at it. So if you can just follow that link and click on the thing that you think most closely represents you. Okie dokie. There's only a couple coming in at the moment, so let's just quickly follow that link and have a see. All right. Here we go. So there you go. A few of you are putting in now. Come on, I want some absolute rock stars. We did when I love this term of being an absolute rock star, and I kept putting in, and I'm like, I'm an absolute rock star, and everyone else when we were testing it was putting in all different ones. I want an absolute rock star. Okay, I mean, you know, it's interesting, isn't it? It's you know, some of it, Joe will say that that's people being humble and realistic, most likely. 3 of you, no idea. A few of you winging it. You know, I also have this theory that you say yes to everything and then you work out how to do it. But thank you very much for just completing that. And as Joe said, you know, put things in the chat as well. As I'm talking, I will try to take a look at that too. So the session is about stop wasting money on marketing. On Chris's promotions, it talked about there's no single magic marketing mix. There isn't. Everything is nuanced. Everything will change. You know, you've got to have your strategy, but then your tactics will change and evolve. And it is not linear. It isn't a case of you do PR at that first stage for awareness. You can as much do it at the stage for advocacy. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give you some ideas. I'm not going to sit here and give you a 101 of marketing tactics, because quite frankly, that'd be boring for you and it'd be boring for me. So I'm going to give you a set of insights and rat holes that you can avoid to help you along the way. And my kind of ask of you is take one thing away. My theory is always that if you can have one insight or one action and then take it away and try it and give it a go, see how it works for you, then we've done our job, you know, and I think that probably would work for each of the speakers today. So have a think about it as I go through the pointers, and I'm going to talk to you. I'm not going to do death by PowerPoint. I think we've all probably had enough. And remember, I'm an ex-IBMer, so I'm really good at doing very, very heavy-duty PowerPoint slides. So we don't want one of those. So questions in the chat while I talk. We'll get through as many as we can during the session. And if we run out of time right at the end, then we can follow up afterwards as well. So get your chat ready to go, because I'm going to ask you a question now and take a look in the chat. So what role do you think is being advertised the most for at the moment for marketing positions? Just put some ideas in the session as to what do you think people are advertising for now? Okay, we've got a senior marketing exec, marketing assistant, social media experts. Okay, so there's a few coming in there. Actually, the thing that people are hiring for most is this thing called a digital marketing role. Right, interesting. Over the last 18 months, undoubtedly, we have seen a huge emphasis on digital marketing, because that's how we've had to perform. You know, you've no longer been able to send a direct marketing piece to someone's office because they've not been there. So you've got to, you know, people have had to start thinking of other ways of doing things. The issue is everyone has literally, it seems, everyone has started a podcast or they've started live streaming. Everyone's consuming online content and probably getting a bit tired about it. In which case, no one, slightly sweeping statement, is reading newsletters. Fake news is affecting social media, and everyone seems to be constantly striving and indeed obsessing on the perfect SEO. And we've got to be realistic about these things. Otherwise, like, you know, again, let's have some context here. It's marketing. It's not like the end of the world. The reality is we've been doing digital marketing for over a quarter of a decade. It is not new. There isn't a shortcut to it. It's about classic marketing leveraging existing tools. So we have to keep in mind, you've got to, you know, think about what do you need to do to keep in front of your customers. And if you try to market to everybody, you are ultimately going to market to no one. So you have to target and you have to select the right channels and tools at the right time, which is what I mentioned earlier on. You know, those people that are obsessed with, we've got to do a weekly newsletter. Why? Who's reading it? What action do you want to take from it? Things like, you know, we see companies doing at the moment, big push on recruitment. So the whole social media channel is about recruitment marketing. So every single post is a picture of someone that works there. There's a fundamental flaw with that, in that it's just not engaging. Not only are they not tagging in the right people, they're not sharing it. And so social media, and you know, you're saying there are lots of people wanting social media jobs. You have to make the content really engaging. You have to share stories, you have to share news, you have to take people on this journey with you. So the tactics are just the execution vehicle, it's the road. You know, you've got to put something really cool on that road to engage people. So just, you know, an example there. And the other thing around digital marketing is, quite often it's been, social media specifically, it's being dealt with as if it's something separate to the core communications of the company. And as a sweeping generalization, some of the content on there is being then dealt with more junior people, or the messages do not align with the company messages. And we actually had an instance yesterday where I pinged someone who isn't even our customer and went, do you really want that tweet on your social media channel? And they immediately took it down because it just didn't align with the messages. So you've got to be really careful not to jump on a bandwagon of going, we need more digital marketing. It is marketing, it's just another way of doing it. And my last plea before I get off the subject of social media is to please remember, social media is social. If you're just going to use it, like Joe said, if it's going to be, we have announced something, great, you know, put it out there, but you're not going to get a lot of interaction with it. You've got to drive people to it, to interact with it, to be social, to interact with their content. And that, you know, that's what makes social media actually work. So staying on digital marketing, that also includes your website. And some of the things about wasting money that we see is, unless you are supremely lucky, having your uncle's friend's son develop your website is really not likely to give you the long-term result that you need. We have on many occasions taken down a client's website because it's more harmful than it is useful. And so, you know, just think about how much money you want to spend on doing something quick, or how much you want to spend on doing something right. And your messaging on your website is still really important. So I have this thing where I say that people have got the attention span of a gnat, or that content should be 30 seconds or 30 minutes. And the same applies to your website. People just want to go there. They want to get a feel for what it is. They want to understand what you do. And if they then click, it's because they want to find out more. And that's where you can give them more content to consume. And equally, on the old subject of SEO, and I know we're going to come on to, you know, marketing efficiency in a moment with Matt. If you actually get your messaging right, then that will tick an awful lot of the boxes for SEO as well. So other things that are going on, public relations, that was a quick highlight in Joe's chart. One thing on public relations is it's not just PR putting out an announcement. So I've talked about integrated marketing. When we put out a press announcement, we put the announcement out, but then we also look at, can we put it in a standalone byline piece for a key publication? Can we do an exclusive, for example? How do we interact with it on social media? Can we bring it together with a speaking opportunity at an event? So what I'm trying to demonstrate here is you can develop really strong content once and use it across many of the different tactic platforms that are available to you. So I'd really urge you to think about doing that, as opposed to doing, we're just focusing on social media, we're just focusing on events. Think much more integrated. And then I've got a load of other examples that I could share with you. We once projected the company logo on all major landmarks in London, and we did it as a media stunt, but we got so much coverage for it. We got local, national press, we got marketing press, we got everything, because it was just a really gutsy thing to do. So I don't think you can do it very often, and I think you have to be really careful that they're not vanity projects, but adding a little occasional pizzazz to your comms is really refreshing and really interesting. So I would definitely look at that. And on that same vein, those of you that have to do big exhibition events, because again, this is a tactic for marketing, you spend a fortune on it. The bigger brand you are, the bigger the stand is. One year we decided we weren't doing that, and we actually took a couple of dozen London black cabs, we liveried them up with the logos, we put screens in them, and we then ferried people. So everyone who went to Birmingham NEC got in one of our cabs. Everyone who went back to the station got in one of our cabs. We succeeded by getting the level of coverage that we needed without going through over $250,000 of expenditure. So just think about different things like that. Fine, I know I'm like, this is my problem. I scroll and I kind of run out of time. So what are the things that I want you to think about as potential takeaways? CSR, you know, CSR isn't a nice thing to have. It isn't done by your exec office and your HR teams. It's now done by the comms team as an integrated way of, you know, working with your employees who want to have purpose in their roles, and your communities and all of those types of things. Look at employee engagement. Your internal people are your biggest spokespeople, whether you like it or not. And talking about spokespeople, train up a range of speakers. Don't only just use your execs, use people in different departments, get them up for, you know, nominate them for awards, put them in board positions where, you know, industry board positions where it's relevant, and really try and raise the profile of your organization through your people, because that's ultimately what they buy. So my 3 things, because 3 seems to be the thing, I'll just follow Joe's. Have to mention budget, because we talked about spending money wisely. Budget, if you pay budget, the likelihood is you're going to get budget. You know, you can pay super expensive, and you don't need to necessarily pay super expensive. What you need to do is find the right people and companies that fit with what you're looking for. And if you choose well, they'll always go above and beyond, and that'll be good spend of your marketing. Don't get stuck in your own sector. We are very open in the fact that what you can do in one industry is utterly transformative when you then apply it in another industry. So if you see something being done in a different industry, steal it. I basically think that there are no original ideas. So just take something and you know, build that for yourself. And as I said right at the top, please don't stick your nose in a textbook. You know, certainly this area, and if you're calling from the east of England, we've got Joe's Meetup. We run a comms clinic in the Bradfield Centre every month. We're a great community who want to help each other. So be part of that community, you know, ask your questions, and just interact with us. So I hope that's kind of been of interest. I'm trying really just to stimulate some different thinking rather than just a core marketing 101 presentation. So I hope that you found that useful. I did have another poll thing to ask you, but we can do that probably later on. I'll post it in the chat, but I'm keen to hear also what Matt has to say. So Chris, that's me for now, I think.
Bravo, bravo. That was a tour de force. I was running out of bits of paper writing stuff down, and because that fired up a few thoughts in my mind for sure, and I'm sure others have too. And I'm thinking everybody's thinking, thank God this is being recorded, because that was great. I can't see specific questions in the chat. And again, I've got, you know, it stimulated a few in my mind, but I'll keep them back, because I think we'll bundle stuff together at the end for everybody. And because I can see the clock, I won't get in the way of Matt, I think. So thank you very much, Faye. That was great. as expected. And so let me introduce Matt from Ruler Analytics, who were the inaugural member of the Google Innovation Initiative, really based on the sheer amount of traffic that was flowing through their systems that Google suddenly woke up to. He's based up in Liverpool, but he's joining us today. And apart from not wasting money on digital, he's going to talk about some good stuff, including attribution, which is almost the holy grail of some of this. So Matt, over to you.
Absolutely. Cheers, Chris. Yeah, firstly, fantastic to follow the last two speakers. Quite a big act to follow. Just to give you my background myself and what my position, that I work for Rural Analytics, and my role is largely on a consultation and a new business role with speaking to marketers such as yourselves, as I was one for 10 years. So I'm from a marketing background, working predominantly in SEO and digital marketing, and then overall digital strategy prior to working as a consultant and being approached by Ruler to come on board and how I do now, and that's making sure and communicating what Ruler can do for businesses and understanding the tech stack and the tactics that they're following out. So my kind of talk today is, more than anything, it's about understanding what you're doing specifically from a digital perspective. Largely is what Ruler focuses on, and that's understanding what's working, and then from knowing that, making sure that you optimize and act accordingly to get more of the benefits out of your marketing. Rather than what can happen with marketing quite often is lots of money can be spent and you don't know which of that spend is actually contributing to the bottom line and bringing revenue back to you and results, and that's what Ruler tries to focus on. So I'll go through a small presentation shortly, which will be largely through the lens of Ruler and how we approach things. It's not a pitch as such, so we're not looking to try and drive lots and lots of new business for us, but it's just a way to show you why our product was developed and what the benefits of that and bring to the table, really, and that's largely from evidencing and optimizing. So I'll share my screen and I'll talk through the kind of scenarios that we see and what the research that we've carried out shows about the marketing community. And so I'll go from there, really. And it shouldn't be quite as long as the other two have been, as we're quite straightforward and focused on what we do in terms of attribution. So I'll just share this here just to test. Chris, can you see that?
Yeah. Seeing that.
Okay, excellent. So what we're going to focus on is marketing attribution, and specifically the way that we approach, and that's about closing the loop. And that's looking at the traditional methods of understanding the performance of digital marketing, and then looking at how we approach and what the kind of we're seeing the evolution going. So in terms of what is closing the loop and what the traditional methods is traditionally sales and marketing are quite disconnected, especially from a digital marketing and a offline result perspective. So you'll drive a lot of traffic from different means and different tactics into your website, whether that's through social media, whether that's search, whether that's content across the web, which links back to the site, creating referral traffic, and lots of other means, and that would traditionally hit a marketing tool such as Google Analytics, and you'll see traffic from various sources, campaigns, and so on and so forth, and then you can set quite rudimentary goals to say there's been a form submission or they have viewed a specific piece of content, so on and so forth. And that's where a lot of digital marketing is performed on, really. So what we look to do and why Ruler was created was to understand what is driving traffic to the site and then what that performance is, and where you traditionally would have quite a disconnect with the offline results in CRMs or sales, and that's where we were. So on some research that we carried out in some report, we found that almost 20% of marketers find attributing revenue to leads as their greatest reporting challenge. And from my experience in digital strategy, I found that 75% of my meetings with clients would be around what results they're getting. Are they getting any return from what we're doing, and what activity of we're carrying out is actually driving results? And I spent a long time compiling that data and understanding it, and a lot of it was just largely hearsay. So what we look to do and what the product looks to do is kind of understand that more and to show the results. So what we also found is different companies and different websites convert in different ways. And we found from our conversion report is lots of businesses predominantly generate form fills or bookings online, but there's still quite a large percentage of businesses in certain sectors that use more traditional means, such as phone calls, for picking up the call and making inquiries, closing sales, and so on and so forth. So we found that really interesting, and have ways in which you can not just attribute traditional web leads to activity you're carrying out, but is there other types of leads? Is the live chat engagements that are going on? Is the telephone calls that have been generated? And we look to try and understand that as well. So it's just an understanding of how do people contact you. So it's not necessarily that you follow a specific mold, that this is digital marketing, for instance, and this is how we generate leads, whether that's a content view, to a download of an ebook, to a form fill. It could be that your business is very different when people land on the site and they'll call within the first 10 seconds, and that's as much as the attention you need to grab. So we'll try and highlight that as well. From our research, we found that 60% struggle with inbound calls. So there's things on the market for call tracking. Some people use click to call, some people use Google's own call tracking, but a lot of people who are generating calls have no idea where they're coming from. So they found that as difficult. We find that people have struggled to track live chat, and they also struggle with the traditional form submissions. So where we're going with this really is that if you have a website, and that's predominantly what we operate in, and that's where kind of the lens I'm viewing this on, is the understanding your different submissions and how people are contacting you and where you want to go, really. So what we find and what a lot of businesses will experience is marketing and sales are very disconnected. So a visitor will come to a website and then it becomes a lead, which is notified to marketing, and marketing then go off and try and get more leads just based on the fact that it's a lead. But at the same time, sales are retrieving the lead, they're dealing with it, they're engaging with the customer, and they're converting, but there's absolutely no communication going on between the two. And it's really important that if you are trying to run an effective sales and marketing operation, that those two connect, so that your marketing team know which of their leads are converting into sales, and your sales team know where the leads are coming from, so they can act accordingly and approach different leads in different ways if needed, if there can be different scenarios to work on. So a big scenario that we find, and kind of one of the reasons why our product was created, is not all leads are equal. So in the website digital marketing realm, two leads can come in for a website, and to Google Analytics or the traditional reporting means it's 2 leads to 2 leads, and that's great to have, and that's as far as it goes. But one of those sets of leads, for instance, could have produced a higher quantity of sales from the back of it. Others could have produced a lower quantity, but could be higher value. So what we really need to get past is that someone's contacted you. What we look to address is, okay, well, of those people who've contacted you, how many have converted into sales? So you're understanding not just the vanity metrics of we've had lots of people contacted. It's okay, well, from those people who've contacted, which ones have converted into sales and revenue? And that's kind of what the crux of my communication today is about, is that understanding what's happening from your digital marketing and where the revenue is coming from, and then passing that back to understand how we can generate more and go from there. So what we found is marketers will be left in the dark for 3 main areas. Firstly, is the quantity of leads to generate. Secondly, it's which channels are driving their sales. And thirdly, and largely most importantly, is which campaigns are most profitable. So it's ensuring that your digital marketing that you're carrying out is being profitable and driving revenue to the business, which ultimately is the goal of the vast majority of normal marketing. The top 5 challenges that we find is businesses are looking to generate high quality leads. They're looking to provide a return on investment, obviously. Tracking offline conversions is a massive challenge for a lot of businesses. So they can tell you how the websites are performing, but they can't tell you what they're getting out of it. Reaching the right audience, using different tools to understand who it is that is contacting them, and understanding the quality of the leads, which is largely the area that we focus on. So I mentioned before about kind of the old way and the new way of approaching things and this closed loop approach. So the old traditional way is a person will contact the business, they'll be unidentified, they'll then potentially convert with them, but there's no connection between which conversion or which lead generated the sale. What we do personally and what a lot of businesses do successfully is that understanding of that cycle that occurs. So you're driving visitors to your business, you're converting those customers. You can then see what's driven that customer to you and where that's came from in a lead perspective, and then integrating that with your sales department, so you can then see which of the leads and which people that you're bringing to the business is actually converting, and then using that data to then optimize the next go round, so to speak. So if you've got a big scenario we find all the time is businesses are spending a lot of money on campaigns and activities that, when you drill down to it, aren't really contributing to the revenue or the conversions that are going into the business. And I'm not talking about awareness campaigns here. I'm talking about actual campaigns that the goal is to generate conversions, but they're spending a lot of money which isn't contributing. So what we found for a lot of the businesses that we work with will be able to trim a lot of the fat from the marketing spend and then either save it for something else, or more likely then push that revenue into the areas that may still have potential to grow, and they're the ones that are converting and generating revenue for them. So that's what we find, and that's that constant cycle of understanding where the conversions are coming from and then using that data to feed performance. So in terms of benefits of marketing attribution, it's firstly to track your interactions across the entire customer journey, as customers for most markets, not all, but most, will come to a business through different means at different points of the journey. So whether that's they're firstly looking to understand what they need and more top of the funnel, and then as they grow down to the closer they become to conversion, they'll then come back through different means. And what we look to capture is all the different visits that they have, so that it's not just being attributed to a last click, for instance, which is traditional digital marketing, which removes a lot of the good stuff from the initial visits. Evidence to your campaigns that you're driving businesses to your site with, so making sure that your campaigns are effective, being able to evidence that, and then reporting on the performance of your campaigns, whether that is to optimize your own work, or a lot of the time it's to report to senior stakeholders or other stakeholders in the business that this is what this is the money we're spending, this is what we're generating from it. So what we look to do is track that from traffic, tracking all the leads that come through to a site, matching up against who it is that's converting, and then integrating with the offline systems to get an idea of conversions, so that we can go back through. Just a quick glance of how Ruler does this, just to give you a bit of a kind of hands-on approach. What we will do is, in digital marketing, a visitor will come to the site, we'll pick up the information of what's brought them to the site. If they then revisit the site, we'll pick up each visit to attribute that across the life cycle of that user up until the point of conversion. Once that conversion has occurred, we'll then build the feedback with a CRM system or a sales system so that that lead then continues to be tracked until conversion. So that's just an idea of how we do it from a digital marketing perspective, but the whole, just the most important crux that I'm trying to get across is that understanding what's generating your sales and then working backwards to say, okay, well, how can we get more of those? And that's effectively what Ruler does. So just to give you an idea of scenarios that we find that businesses come to us is a paid media campaign to drive leads that close in a CRM, but they have no means to connect the two. We have clients that come to us that have conversion via telephone or live chat that they can't attribute. Board reporting to prove marketing impact and revenue. So they often have to report to other stakeholders about what is marketing be effective. Now we can minimize that, or this approach can minimize that conversation significantly. So say, here's the spend, here's what we're getting returned. Let's move on to the creative stuff that people actually want to discuss. And getting an understanding of where leads are in the pipeline and the sales journey, and making sure that duplication isn't occurring from different channels as well. So there's just some ideas of what we approach from Ruler. To give you some perspective on what can be achieved from this type of format, being able to track from digital lead to offline revenue enables you to understand how much your marketing is actually contributing to your offline sales. So a business who has offline sales can go from not having any connection to then being able to say internally that we know that 26% of our Google ads, 26% of our revenue can be attributed somewhere on the line to a Google ads campaign. We can also see this percentage of increase on return on ad spend as well. And that's to go through a Ruler. I'm trying to condense that quite a bit and make it not too Ruler centric for you, but just to give you an idea of what we look to focus on and what can be achieved. Thank you.
Brilliant, Matt. Do you want to stop sharing your screen so then we can see more of the chat stuff? There are a couple of questions for you which you may have seen in the chat box. I'm just sorry, I'm just pulling them up.
Yeah, I can see Catherine's has popped up about number of touch points. It's the really frustrating answer, but it depends. There's so many different factors in different industries that it is an impossible question to answer in terms of average number of touch points before a conversion, because there's so many different. But if you have an idea of the industry and want to catch up afterwards, we could potentially look at our benchmarking reports and see if we can answer that. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, you're right. It's very sector specific. I remember working in enterprise software, and there was a new division, a business was acquired and then consumed into the organization, and the VP of that side of it, which was workforce scheduling, reckoned that it would take at least 8 touches, between 8 and 10 touches to get anywhere, any traction with anybody, and that would be both online and offline. So it's nuanced, as you say. There was another question, and actually we can open this up to yeah, okay, yeah, no, trying to drill down into B2B versus B2C. But Catherine, you and I can have a conversation about that, maybe separately to this. There was a question about, this sort of the constant challenge often for smaller businesses who recognize the power of marketing but have either no marketing department yet. So probably the founders of the business are spinning lots of plates and doing marketing, or it's a small team trying to juggle everything. So there's that kind of feeling of being overwhelmed, where to start, what to do best, how to be effective. I mean, I'll give you my answer, then throw it out to Joe, Faye, and Matt, and I would say, you can't do enough research. You can't speak to enough customers. and Faye mentioned that. So many things fall out of conversations with customers. It just reveals so much. Certain industries do it more and better than others. Fast-moving consumer goods, particularly food brands, but generally consumer goods, they generally don't blink without researching. B2B seems to struggle with research and walking in the shoes of the people they're trying to sell to. So my tip would be about starting with research. Joe, Faye, Matt, any thoughts?
Yeah, I sort of build on that to a degree, because I definitely agree about the research point. But the point of the research is that you find that specific insight or those specific people that you can help the best with the specific messages. So often folks will, the trap that both Faye and I have spoken about is sort of falling into kind of doing everything for everyone, and therefore you get busy being busy. As you say, Chris, if you start with your research and actually understanding the audience, actually taking the time to listen, care, find the insight that's going to be killer for you, then it's the type of thing where you can nail down on that specific thing and work smart. You know, I hate using those cliches, you know, but you can work smart in those sort of ways that speaks to that market with those messages. I think the trap that folks fall into is feeling that they need to do everything and they need to do everything for everyone. It's just not true. You know, so I'm a team of one, but I sort of can do it, and the way that we manage it is through also having a small army of freelancers and stuff like that. So there are options out there if you can also look to delegate as much as possible as well. Even if it's as simple as something on Fiverr, all the way through to having proper freelance, sort of more formal support as well. So yeah, be specific, and you'll save yourself a lot of time and money.
So Chris, jumping in as well, we find it an awful lot, and with startups and founders, where timing is actually the most important thing. So yes, they want to do everything, but they can't. So as long as they understand and they've worked through what the strategy is, they then actually quite often go away and have to digest it, and then have to reprioritize and think about where do they want to resource. And a lot of startups, they are seriously budget constrained. So, you know, picking do they want to go and influence investors? Because actually the most important thing for them is to get another funding round, you know, in which case that's what happens. You know, you can run activities that will be targeted specifically at those people. So I would say, if you're starting out, the key thing is your stakeholder management, you know, understanding who do you need to go and talk to, and then just being smart about it. But I agree with Joe, you know, and I said it in my overview, there is a wealth of resources and people out there that are there to help, you know. So whether you want to employ someone or you want to outsource it, actually the smaller you are, potentially it's better for you to outsource, because you get that broader spectrum of experience.
Yeah, good point. Thanks. Matt, did you have anything just on this particular question about, you know, if you're small, time constrained, money constrained, you know, I mean, the data science, if you like, the analytics behind digital spend is so blinking important. It is so easy to give Google your money and it will happily take it from you, and you may have a slightly warm feeling that you've done something productive, but you know, does it? So that sort of discipline, almost, even for small businesses, of really figuring it out is important, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it kind of reiterate what the other two have said, and that's understanding what the options you have available for you for your spend. Just from my consulting background, from working with smaller businesses and who've got time constraints, is that understanding what is available in their market and where their customers are, and then start off there and understanding, okay, well, how can I reach that kind of very core market that I have, and spending money there first, and then kind of expanding on that, but tracking and making sure that where you are spending your money is actually being successful for you.
Yeah,
and then
absolutely.
As you can build on that and then just grow it, and just making sure that you're keeping track of of are you actually getting a return from this, which can consultation outsourcing can spiral. So just making sure that if you are outsourcing, you're outsourcing the right reasons and to the right people that are providing benefit for the business.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I've got, I know George has asked a question and Joe's just come back to him, so we'll see if he does come back on that question. But I've got a question for the panel. Do you think there's been a death a little bit of investing in the big ideas? I mean, you know, before digital, creative agencies were praised and rewarded for just the sheer, you know, creative genius and inventiveness and clever ways of connecting emotionally and logically with target audiences. Digital came along and slightly, you know, kind of swamped everybody with analytics and science. Do you think big ideas and creativity have fallen a little bit at the altar of digital comms?
No. No, not at all. I think there's you can be as creative as you like. You can be as inventive as you like. I mean, you look at what's a beer, Brewdog. You know, companies like that are absolutely thriving. You know, who is Marmite? I mean, I'm just obviously throwing big brands out here. The program, honestly, Squid Game. My brain's all over the place here. They've run a little campaign based on the card of Squid Game. Hopefully some of you know what on earth I'm talking about. Yeah. But there's so much creativity out there, and God help us if we all turn into boring marketeers and we're not actually trying to push the boundaries of creativity. Go guerrilla is what I say. You know, there's cheap, crazy things you can do. I remember when we first started, and I'll stop in a minute, when we first started, we went to a conference, really important conference, and they didn't put water on the table for the speakers. So the speakers were kind of like getting all stressed out about it. So we ran up and we put bottles of water on the table for them. And guess what? They're all Kofinity branded. Perfect guerrilla marketing. Dirt cheap, you had water bottles. Be creative.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I remember the story of the founder of the Cambridge Satchel company, who strategically positioned fluorescent satchels on the laps of people on the Paris, on the fashion show runway on the front row. As soon as the lights went down, the only thing people could see was the satchels. Yeah, clever stuff, but big idea. So I'm all for that. I can't see. George hasn't come back to you, so I'm not sure what we're doing on that. But I'll ask another question. Do you think businesses should start to prime themselves for a resurgence of more old-fashioned tactics offline? I sense there's a desire to start getting pieces of direct mail again, to be spoken to meet. I mean, I know trade shows are starting to happen. I went to the Glee event in Birmingham recently. It was quite stimulating to be walking the halls of a trade show. You know, there is a kind of get ready, because I think the world wants to sort of go from hyperlinks to handshakes again.
Yeah, so I think this is the other side of the coin to George's question, really, because George is asking about innovation and you're asking about old-fashioned, and I think they're of the same thing, and the answer is kind of the same. It kind of doesn't matter all that much. The only thing that matters really is whether you're the customer in the way that they either want to be communicated to, or they don't know they want to be communicated to, but will be happy with. I think the difficulty with having conversations about marketing as a totality is there are so many nuances within target markets, industry sectors, all this stuff that really our job as marketers is to find out what the customer actually wants and then deliver that for them. So for example, it may well be that you may hear my 8-month-old in the background, by the way. I can't make any apologies. It's 2021.
Don't.
But
she's promised a non-speaking role though, Joe.
Yeah. So, it may well be that a handwritten letter, which, I love doing, would be perfect for specific target markets. It may be for another target market, say for example my 18-year-old sister, who looks at that and goes, "You're weird as anything, don't do that," you know. So like, it's highly effective for some people but not for others. So really I think we need to remove ourselves from these sort of like total statements of old is good, or new is good, or new is bad and old is good, or whatever it is, and just start thinking, what do the customer want in my specific context? Okay, let's see what we can do to actually meet their expectations, make them happy, meet their needs, make them, you know, make their lives a little bit better. So, you know, I kind of think that every tactical conversation has to be preceded by that.
Yes, and actually, Joe, there's you know, in terms of marketing effectiveness, there is the skill and planning around being in the room, if you like, you know, in terms of that awareness and interest in you, your products, your services. If you haven't figured out where those people are, whether they're in an expo or online or in a store, you getting close to them is going to be pretty damn difficult if you don't know where to be. So hitting the awareness and interest metrics and the mini funnels that exist in those areas is just as important. And I think that kind of dovetails into what George is talking about on the chat, you know, side of this. You know, everything's different, but figuring out where to be at the right time, at the right place is part of the game. I can't see any other questions, and I'm looking at the clock, which is, you know, kind of bang on the kind of scheduled running time for this. I think oh, hang on, we've got one. How do you think the general role of marketing has evolved? Wow. Yeah. That's really funny, because I actually I had a client who was looking for this multi-talented, multi-skilled all-rounder, and said to Joe, "Do you think this is one person, or do you think this is a number?" Do you remember that conversation, Joe? Yeah. Do you think this is a number of jobs? And we concluded that you would be finding, you know, a real rock star in many ways if you did find somebody who had all those skills.
I think, you know, and it is specifically in terms of recruitment. Yeah. So, you know, I think there are a number of skills. You are right, Chris, that, you know, folks will quite often go out into the market looking for a marketing manager who is willing or wanting to do every one of those things. You know, so be it SEO, PPC, email marketing, events, strategy, tactics, research, etc. So yeah, I think the market has demanded that sort of thing, but I think there has to be a realization that as human beings, then there are going to be things that we are stronger at and weaker at. So for example, I am terrible. The stuff that Matt was speaking about attribution and analytics and stuff like that, that's not how my brain works. I can't deal with it. I can't, I'm rubbish, you know, so don't get me for that wrong. But if you want events, you know, if you want someone who's a really great copywriter who can get on with people and stuff like that, then it will be me, you know. So I think there are a lot of roles that ask for a lot of things, and if you hire someone into one of those things, then you have to realize that you're going to get a human being that is going to be better at some and worse at others. One way to think about this is there's a very famous publication within the marketing sector called The Long and the Short of It. So the long is all about long-term brand building. The short is about short-term acquisition sales. These are the people that are coming in now, today. In theory, you should be doing a 60-40 split as a very, very high level rule, and it changes by industry and sector. A lot of marketers will fit into one of those two brackets. They're either going to be people like me, or there might be more people like Matt. You know, I'm probably more on the long, Matt's probably more on the short. Maybe not. Matt probably does both, to be honest, because, you know, he's probably cleverer than me. But you know,
I'm very much analytics and getting things done rather than the creative and the kind of bigger picture sort of stuff. So yeah, I think we definitely do two sides.
Perfect. So there we go. So yeah, you know, I don't think those people really exist. It's a very long way to answer, but I can see that Faye's unmuted herself.
Yeah, I fundamentally disagree with you. Cambridge is renowned for the startups and the people that go and put themselves in those roles and they learn it. They say yes and they do it. And they are some of the most multi-skilled, multidisciplined people that are going. Now, it's hard to find them because they then are in demand. But, you know, that is definitely the way to go and learn all of those different skills by actually doing it. And then if you want to hire them, they are extraordinarily expensive, and that's a slight challenge. So the answer to the question, and I don't actually see a name, is the other thing you do is you outsource. You know, if you want all of those skills, you outsource. You know, you literally need to have all of them, and then whoever you outsource it to will help you fill the gap, because they'll be able to show you which skills you actually need internally and which ones you can quite happily outsource. So I kind of agree with you, Joe. I'm just like,
I was going to say,
I thought I'd be argumentative, just, you know, throw something out there just to
it's
finish.
fine. I actually think we said pretty much the same answer in a sense, which is that you will establish the business need. I think that's a really great point, Faye. I guess my main point was that you will find individuals as human beings have natural strengths and natural weaknesses. And if you want to hire a marketer to do everything, there are naturally going to be some people that are going to be better at some things and they're going to be worse at other things. And to your point, establishing the business need.
Yeah. Thank you. I think I'm gonna reflect back at 2 or 3 things that I took out of this, which chime with me, just because I'm conscious of the clock and a few people dropping off now. So Faye talks about consistency or inconsistency, and people who've known me for a lot of years know that one of my favorite truisms is that inconsistency is the enemy of brand building. So stop, you know, jumping around with messaging, positioning, you know, find it, lock it down, and repeat. So consistency and inconsistency is a problem. Add some pizzazz, which was a phrase that another phaseism. Absolutely. I mean, it isn't all binary, and there is still the need to test again. And sometimes being provocative, being brave, and adding some pizzazz is exactly what the market, the sector needs to be different and to create that standout. And anybody who follows people like Dave Trott, you know, understands the power of, you know, good thinking, good writing, and disruptive messaging. So do that. And then lastly, I suppose to pay homage to Matt's work, understanding behavior, understanding consumers, understanding the behavior, what they're doing, how they're interacting with you, what makes you money is pretty damn important. So whether you figure that out online and or offline is, you know, very, very important for this. So I haven't got too much more to add. I know that everybody said lots of really good stuff, and I'm conscious of time. So for everybody's sake, I want to just say thank you to Joe, Faye, and Matt for making the time to contribute to this masterclass session today. I really appreciated it. It's been stimulating for me, and I hope the audience have found out some good stuff and enjoyed sharing in it. Thank you for the questions for those who posed them. We will make the recording available once we've boxed it up and got it up and ready. And so if there's nothing else to add from Faye, Matt, or Joe, other than a kind of a thumbs up and enjoy the rest of your days, we will close this down and wish you all the rest of your good Wednesday, and look out for William Shatner bobbing about in weightlessness pleasure later on somewhere in the universe.
Great, thanks, Chris.
Yeah, have a good day. Cheers now. Bye, everybody.